Look at this new study that just came out. If you're wondering why there's these tip screens on every table in America, well, it's because people tip 11% more digitally than they do with cash.
To tip or not to tip? That appears to be the question yet again as tipping options pop up. To tip or...
It's because people tip 11% more digitally than they do with cash.
This is why I always tell people, please, if you are trying to save money, this is only for me. But for me, I feel like I spend way less money whenever I'm actually using cash. Whenever I actually have to physically, I mean, this is obviously fake fucking money, right? But I have to give the $80 or $100, and I physically see that money leaving my hand. And I know this $20 bill. I grew up with this $20 bill, and I know what the fuck that means. And I'm giving it away. That definitely is way different. So if you're the kind of person that overspends, buy things and sell things, or mainly buy things, pay for things in cash. And at least for me, it vastly reduces the amount of money I want to spend. And it feels way different spending the money because you actually lose something. Whereas whenever you're doing it digitally, it's all theoretical.
To tip or not to tip? That appears to be the question yet again as tipping options pop up in new places.
Welcome to the
answer is
point.
no.
Not the psychological kind, but the kind that hits your wallet.
I'm purchasing an office chair online, and they're asking me if I want to leave a tip.
Today, we're diving into the curious world.
Okay. If you're purchasing an office chair and it comes with a delivery option, and the tip goes to the delivery people, then I think that's at least, I mean, it's all bullshit, right? But that's at least kind of understandable. It doesn't? Oh, yeah, no, it probably goes all to the CEO. But theoretically.
Of tipping, where it feels like every checkout screen in America has suddenly sprouted a big blinking tip me button. Gone are the days when tipping was confined to restaurants and taxis. Now, thanks to omnipresent glowing screens, everything from your barista to your self-checkout is looking for a little extra. Doesn't it seem like one day you were just buying a coffee and the next you're doing the tipping tango with a digital screen that will let you proceed until you've awkwardly decided how generous you're feeling? You're in uncaffeinated purgatory until you tap your way out. Or maybe the ride-sharing scenario. No sooner has the vehicle stopped than your phone dings with a prompt for a tip.
Uber now displays tipping options more prominently in the app, and Dan says he's noticed the difference.
The real chunk of where you made your money is tipping.
Now sure, the driver might rely on these tips, but the prompt itself adds an instant layer of obligation, making what could be a simple transaction feel like a moral judgment.
Restaurant servers make...
That's the problem. It's the emotional... Americans are such pathetic pussy losers. It's pathetic to me. And I think that if you get emotionally manipulated into giving your money away, then it's better off that somebody else has it anyway.
As little as $4 an hour, and they're expected to make up the rest in tips. Should employers pay more so that people aren't so dependent on their tips?
You see, in the U.S., the federal minimum wage for tipped
I like how they just said,
employees is $2.13 per hour, provided that this amount plus the tips received equals at least the federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour. Otherwise, your company, the employer, must make up the difference. This system allows businesses, particularly in the hospitality and service industries, to legally pay significantly lower wages on the assumption that tips will cover that shortfall.
Larry Kramer says based on his years of restaurant experience, he believes the current system of tipping works best for everyone.
Some person might tip 30%.
This guy is, who's this guy? He's the owner. Oh! Okay, I understand. So basically, let me explain. So the owner is the one who has to pay the workers. So whenever he's talking about it being the best for everyone, what he really means is that it's the best for Larry. Yeah, that's what he means. Whenever he says everyone, he's not talking about everyone. What he really means is it's the best for him.
I pit 18, so the server
a little bit confusing, but yeah,
by getting tips. It also motivates the server to do well.
Federal law says businesses can pay tipped employees as little as $2.
Right, and think about how good that is for Larry. Because imagine if Larry had to pay $15 an hour. Well, maybe he might not have had time to do this interview because he'd have to be working. Luckily, we have tips, and that's why it's the best for everybody.
13 cents an hour.
And the reason for that is because they expect you to make around $5.12 an hour in tips.
Ooh.
That's $5.12 an hour the company doesn't have to pay. If you aren't making $5.12
That's right.
an hour in tips, then the company has to pay out of pocket to match $7.25 an hour. I want to give you a really clear example of how this works. Here's a chart that shows you make about $6 an hour in tips. After working 8 hours, you make $65.04 as the employee, but the employer only
You
has
can almost buy one AAA video game.
to pay you $17.04. Okay, now let me show you this chart with $0 an hour in tips. Your company has to pay out of...
You can almost buy half of, like, you can buy 30 or like maybe 40 or 50 pulls in Honkai Star Rail that you can do within like 3 seconds.
pocket $40.96 to get you to the minimum wage for that day, which is $58.
Oh, wow.
Now, does it make sense why companies love employing tipped workers?
Because it helps pay for the employees.
But let's imagine a world...
Well, at least he says it. I mean, Larry's many things, but at least he's not a liar.
where your coffee doesn't come with a side of guilt. That's the world Cook Unity lives in, which is today's sponsor. If deciding whether to tip or not has you feeling like you're on a game show where every answer feels wrong, then with Cook Unity, the only pressure you'll feel is deciding which meal to heat up next. If you've never heard of Cook Unity before, they're chef-crafted meals delivered to you weekly. And they have choices. Boy, do they have choices. East Coast, West Coast. You want Texas food? They got Texas food. Now, let's
What is Texas food? As we can see, there it is. A lot of Mexican food. Mexican food and barbecue. That's it.
Food. Now, let's say you're a bit pickier than that, or your dietary needs are different. They actually have filters on your filters for your filters. I mean, come on, they have a pizza filter. You want protein only? They got it. Not that kind of protein? Hey, that's cool too. They got veggie meal. As you can see, the chefs over at Cook Unity offer a wide range of meals. Over 7 different dietary preference filters, including vegan, paleo, and gluten-free options. Let me show you a few meals I ordered. First up, we've got herb roasted chicken breast from Chef Kevin Meehan. This chicken's got more herbs than a farmer's market on a Sunday morning. That's the one I'm actually eating.
Besides the green shit, that looks pretty good.
Every time I cook chicken and heat it up, it tastes like rubber. But this tastes like it's from the restaurant. There's the barbecue chicken burrito by Chef Ruben Garcia.
Where's
and
the
lastly,
burrito?
rainbow chicken and pasta salad by Chef Nelson Brazella. The salad's got more layers than your favorite winter outfit, and it's dressed better too. That's because the chefs at Cook Unity use real ingredients, nothing artificial. You can pause, skip, or cancel faster than you can, not tip on the digital screen at least. If you didn't get it, there's no tipping required. It's quite the opposite. If you go to cookunity.com/fluke50, you'll actually get 50% off your first order. Not a tip jar in sight. So go support the people who support this channel and get your...
To be fair, using his link code is actually a tip jar. But that's fine.
One of these delicious Unity meals. So why the sudden spread of tipping everywhere? Post-COVID, a lot of consumers, not everyone, started to appreciate service workers more.
Square is a leader in these point-of-sales devices.
It's also generally a good idea, by the way. It's still good. Like, for example, No Rest for the Wicked had a code that you used, like a creator code, and it saved you money, and part of that money went to the developer, and part of the money went to the streamer. So it's still an upside. I'm not saying it's like bad or he's wrong, but I'm saying that you do sometimes get a kickback on those. I don't know how that specific deal works, but a lot of them work that way.
When the pandemic started, tipping became more commonplace to support workers during those takeout orders. And that mentality appears to have stuck.
Do you know a lot of other restaurateurs?
Yes, I do.
Do they generally feel the same way that you do about the tipping structure?
I bet they do.
I think it's pretty much a consensus now.
That's crazy. So they all agree that it's better to offset the wages of the employees onto the customer. Wow. So you're telling me they all agreed on the same thing? Holy shit. I guess we should just keep doing it.
In the industry, and that's why
all
QSRs
owners agree.
are adding tips to their business. Before, you wouldn't have it at a Sweet Bean or a Dig or a coffee shop, but they're adding a tipping mechanism as well because it helps pay for the employees.
See, there you go, from a business owner himself.
Because it helps pay for the employees.
That way, I don't have to. Thank you for making it exceptionally easy for everyone to know where to not work. I wonder how many people apply there after this.
A lot, probably, if it's in a good place where people tip a lot of money. Why would anybody give a fuck what Larry thinks? If you're going to make money there and people are tipping a lot of money, then they're going to do that.
go up and more services outside of traditional restaurants are asking their customers if they'd like to toss in a few bucks extra.
Pretty women make tons in tips, bro. Yeah, I know. Like, I've seen OnlyFans. I know that. I mean, everybody knows that. For sure.
Some people are starting to feel what's been labeled as tipping fatigue.
Oh my
God. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm sure you're wondering, does being put on the spot while someone watches you affect how much you're tipping?
It
Turns
does.
out, absolutely.
I always
100%.
tip because I feel like I should, but I don't always feel like I should.
Studies show that when...
Then just don't. This is the problem. This is the... As I said, if you are too emotionally weak that you can be guilted by the disapproval of strangers into giving your money away, it's better for everyone that somebody else has that money instead. I think that's natural selection. I do. I think this is just better for everybody. Like, let's give the money to somebody who's not a complete bitch.
Other people are watching, people tip more. It's actually intricately tied to social pressures and the desire to avoid appearing stingy or unappreciative in public.
There it is. People don't want to. It's all about appearances. Do I tip? I do. A lot of places that I go to, people recognize me. Oh, that's the guy from the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. Oh, that's the guy, my friend watches you on YouTube. And they're like, oh, we know you have money. Okay, fine. I can give you guys a bit extra money, right? It's okay. Because it does not fucking matter to me. Like, it's totally fucking... I spend less than 1% every month on my expenses. 99% of my, like, money that I make, I never spend it.
Payments.com highlights research indicating that digital screens at checkout amplify this pressure significantly. Right here it says social pressure drives up tips by 50%. So
does it get socially pressured? No, it just doesn't bother me. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I have no problem helping them out. And then, like, also, like, I'll go somewhere and, like, maybe we'll be late or something like that. And, like, we'll, like, stay past the time that they close. And I'll feel like, okay, I'm going to give them some money because they're, you know, I'm inconveniencing them, right? I think that's fair. Yeah.
Here's the chart, and down here you can see when no one's watching, people tip an average of 10%. When a stranger's watching, you get 12%. A family friend or the worker receiving the tip, you're probably going to tip 15%. Another chart right here shows that if you have a tip jar, people tip around 10%. But if you have a digital screen asking for that money, they tip around 15%.
Well, it's also because nobody has cash. Like, most people don't walk around with cash. I remember one time I went somewhere, I forgot where it was like Taco Cabana or something. And I went to buy my food, and they said, like, oh, we're so sorry, we're only accepting cash. And it's like, that's fine. Like, I always carry cash. I mean, I think a lot of you guys probably, like, what do you carry? Like, probably $100, $200, like, cash if you can. And so, like, that's the default. And so I always have the money on me. But, like, a lot of people apparently don't. 40 maybe? Yeah.
This part of the study is nuts. Despite most consumers, 75% of them believing that it is inappropriate for self-checkout kiosks to have the tip option, a significant portion still comply with these requests.
Dick suckers. Absolute dick suckers. That's what you get. That's what you get. If you're a bitch, that's what you get. Pathetic. This is cuck natural selection. They deserve it.
59% of consumers tipped when asked to do so at a fast food establishment, and 62% of people tip at retail or grocery stores.
Dick eaters.
Wait a minute, you're telling me that 25% of people think it is okay for self-checkout kiosks to have a tipping option? Who's this other 25%? And now that you know how
dick eaters
tipping works, you gotta love the CEO's take. Your ability to tip with a smartphone is important for two reasons. The first one is through retention of keeping staff who normally don't get tips, and second, it provides a simple option for guests to show their appreciation at any time without fumbling for cash. Or is that...
Well, I mean, that's kind of true. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of SFAN. And on the first week that AQ came out, SFAN was the first person who got all of the fucking loot, all of the tier 2.5 gear. And I remember he was like telling me about it. And he was like, well, I figured that we could just have me get all the gear first. That way we don't have to think about me getting the gear anymore. And I was like, you know what? I think my guild should do the same thing. Yeah, you got, oh, he's the guild master. That's just the way it is.
because it's money you don't have to pay them. Or how about this guy, Brian? He says that your ability to get tips could be as transformative as early wage access. Or how about this CEO, David, here, who runs a bunch of hotels and partnered with
early access on wages? I love that.
With this company called Shiny. So I guess Shiny allows you to tip housekeeping. We could pay people more, or we could pay...
Tipping housekeeping is a pretty common practice in hotels, to be fair. I mean, this isn't something new, but yeah, this has been around for a bit.
For the service that allows people to tip them instead of just paying that to our people. Because I imagine you paid for this service you partnered with to allow people to tip them. Anyways, tipping is out of control. What do you think? If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Feel free to share the video with someone else if you think it would help them out. And I hope you keep tipping people generously, but just remember where this whole thing comes from. If you have anything else you'd like me to show on the channel,
I think that tipping is only ever going to go away whenever people stop tipping. I think that if enough people stop tipping, then the rules will have to change because people won't be able to fill those spots. So basically, whenever people decide collectively to stop being dick eaters that are worried about the approval of people that they don't even know, at that point, then tipping will go away. If the economy keeps crumbling, tipping will disappear too? Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's too ingrained into our culture. It's too ingrained into the culture because people are pussies. We have a society and a culture full of pussies, babies, that are hyper fixated around the approval of people that they don't even care about. It's pathetic. It really is fucking pathetic. And whenever I see people that are complaining about tipping, just stop doing it. It's easy. It's like you have a hammer and you're hitting yourself in the hand. You're like, my hand hurts. I said, stop using the fucking hammer. What is this? Coward civilization? I know. People are tipping will just make the employer pay them less. Yeah, I think that's true too. The truth is not tipping is going to die until the people who tip do. Well, no, there's always it's a cultural change. Because, like, obviously you could have said that 100 years ago. But I think the reason why is because even people growing up now do it anyway. It's just people pleasing. Exactly. Yeah. If you're so focused on people pleasing that you do it at the expense and to the detriment of yourself, then you deserve that. Losers lose.
And feel free to reach out, Discord, Instagram, email, however you want to do it. The links for that are all down in the description. Oh, and thanks again to Cook Unity for sponsoring today's video. And don't forget, they're actually tipping you 50% off if you use my code down in the description, or you go to cookunity.com/fluke50. Having said all that, I hope everyone's doing well, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yep. Depends on the situation. It isn't always people pleasing. I mean, it depends on what happens. Like, I think there's, like, some instances where, like, it's kind of okay, but I think that's, like, a 1 out of 10 situation. Yeah, there's the video. That's a good video. Give it a like. I've watched this guy's videos before about, you know, corporate culture. I think he's pretty on point with a lot of stuff. Yeah, tip the video. Give it a like, right? And it's funny how no one tips the garbage man. Well, nobody tips the garbage man because it's a low status job. So that's the thing, is that if you work a low status job, people think that you're a loser. That's the way it is. So, like, being a garbage man, being a janitor, working in fast food, like, all these people, I think, deserve tips a hell of a lot more than somebody who's just refilling glasses of water at a high-end restaurant. They deserve way more money. But guess what? Because these jobs are seen as low-rent jobs, there is and this is what's so crazy about it, there's the cultural, like, moral, like, justification. It's, like, morally justified not to tip them because we view them, and I don't mean we as in you guys, I mean the society in general, views them as lesser people who have made mistakes in life, so they deserve to be treated badly, and they deserve not to be respected. Isn't that cute? That's pretty cute.